This video is about the myths associated with ADHD, because there are a lot out there. And unfortunately, those are the kind of things that make people feel badly about a diagnosis, or feel badly about who they are, and that doesn't help anybody, right? And this, in a lot of ways, ADHD can be a superpower for people. So I want to kind of invalidate some of those myths. So the first one is that it's not a real medical condition. It absolutely is. It is tied to a lack of dopamine, and you can do all sorts of reading about that. But there's a chemical reason why someone has ADHD. So don't, and that's why you need a doctor to prescribe medication, or that's why you need a doctor to make the diagnosis, because it is a medical diagnosis. If they would only try harder, they'd be fine. And the problem is they can't try harder, because their executive function is being really affected by the ADHD, and it really gets in their way and it makes it hard for them. So Ross Greene says if they would, they could. And that's just the thing to remember. If your child could do it, they would be doing it. So if they're not doing it, there's a reason why. The other myth is that they can never focus. And so people will say, well, my child doesn't have ADHD because they can focus for hours on Legos. But actually, people with ADHD can do something called hyperfocus, which is like even more focus than a neurotypical person would have. It's like a superpower, right? They can, when on something on an activity of interest, they can really focus. So much so that they might not even hear you talking to them in the room, because they're so focused. So just to clear that up, because that can be confusing for people. Also, a lot of people think that if your child's not hyperactive, that they definitely couldn't have ADHD. And unfortunately, that's not true. So that makes it a little harder to diagnose, because a lot of inattentive kids or inattentive types are not hyperactive, and they can sit for hours and hours and hours, and they're might be staring out the window, but they're not hyperactive. Another myth is that only boys have it. Not true. Girls can have it too. Girls are not as diagnosed as readily as boys are. And that's kind of an issue. So if you have a daughter that you're concerned about, it is something to think about. Some people see it as a learning disability, and it's not really a learning disability. It is considered more of it's kind of considered a disorder in a way, but it is more of a physiological disorder, and it can be comorbid, meaning you can have a learning disability with ADHD, but it is not a learning disability in and of itself. A lot of people think that children will outgrow ADHD, and you don't outgrow it. Your symptoms might lessen, and you'll also learn strategies to support yourself so that your symptoms lessen, but you won't outgrow it. Some people think it's the result of bad parenting. Simply not true. Has nothing to do with parenting. Has nothing to do with, you can't get it from eating too much sugar or not exercising. Eating less sugar and exercising more might help the symptoms, but it's still not causing ADHD. And I think that's it. But again, it is genetic. So if your child is diagnosed, it is, you might want to look at your family and see whether there might be someone in the family that you weren't even aware of, because plenty of people realize that after the fact. So I hope that helps clear up some of the myths around ADHD, because you definitely don't want kids thinking that they're just not trying hard, or they don't care, because they certainly care, and we just want to make sure we're careful about that for our kids. All right, thanks. Oh, and if you are looking for more videos and you want more information, you can check out my website, and of course you can go to YouTube for more. My website is www.katechessman.com. Thanks.